And we're live. I love this. I never know exactly the proper way to start. It depends what kind of conversation I'm having. So, Jonathan, why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself to start, and then we'll kind of probe our way through there. I think, yeah, please.
All right. Well, first of all, good evening.
Good evening.
It's nice to be with you today.
It's great to be here.
So about myself, starting in what year? Like as a kid or currently? What's better?
Ooh, let's start as a kid.
All right.
Yeah, I'm interested in that. Where are you from? You from here?
I'm from Miami Gardens, Florida,
I know Miami Gardens, sure.
which now is Miami Gardens, Florida. But when I lived there, it was just Miami, Florida. Didn't really have
Yeah.
a name.
Yeah.
It didn't have the gardens either.
Sure.
But I grew up there and lived in Miami until I was 16.
Mhm.
And we moved to Vegas when I was 16.
Gotcha.
I come from a big family. I have 3 siblings, 2 parents
That's good.
that are still together, still hang out.
That's nice. That's uncommon, right?
We all hang out together now.
Do you really? It's so nice. How often?
Yeah.
They live here now? They moved back?
They live in Davie.
Oh, sweet. Okay.
We now live in Hollywood,
Right.
and we see them all the time. We
That's
saw them last night, for example.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. It's beautiful. And what are your siblings? They're close?
They are not close. I have a sister in Ohio, a sister in Arkansas, a sister in Colorado, and a half brother in Miami.
Wow. Gotcha. How often do you make your way out to each of those places? Or vice versa? I feel like they would come here more, right?
From here
Yeah.
consistently, probably twice a year.
Okay.
And when we go to the other places, kind of depends on what's going on. So we went to Ohio this year for my brother-in-law's birthday.
Which part of Ohio?
They live in Cleveland,
Mhm.
Shaker Heights.
Nice. Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
And we'll go to Arkansas in the summer. Probably not Colorado this year.
Colorado's
But I've
amazing.
been. But I've been.
Where are they in Colorado?
In Denver.
Denver. Nice. What do you think of Denver?
It's lovely.
It's a cool place, right?
Yeah.
It's a lot of fun. I drove cross country a couple of times, and I always made sure to hit Colorado because I think it's aside from Washington, I think it's my favorite state. Like just to go through.
Washington State.
Yeah, I love Washington State.
Have you driven that far?
I have. That's where I moved. That's where I drove to. I moved to Seattle for a year. I drove from New York, and my buddy. I convinced my buddy to move with me. He was working at he's doing coding at a big corporate company, and he hated it. And I work with my dad. It's a little family business. So I called him and I was like, if you quit your job, I'll hire you. I didn't speak to my dad. Yeah. But then my dad didn't want to do it. So I'm like, Pop, I'm telling you, this guy's brilliant. It's like, until he shows you, split my salary. We'll just split it together. And that way you won't even notice. And when you decide that it's worthwhile, then you'll pay both of us, a regular salary or more, hopefully, if we create that value. It took like a month and a half for that to happen. But he did it, and then for that couple of months, we were 4 guys living in a house that cost $4,000 a month, where between us, our income was like $75,000. We were just living on savings until we got more money, and then
In Washington.
in Seattle.
All right.
Yeah, in Seattle. And so along the way, we drove. So I picked him up, and I bought a 2008 Toyota Prius with like 140,000 miles on it, and one of the cylinders actually wasn't firing while we were driving. The entire time, I'm like, this is burning out through gas like crazy. And my friend's like, oh well, it's all our stuff in the car. Maybe that's what it is. And we got to Seattle, and we're like, no, that car's not good. And then ended up getting hit. I got at like 6 o'clock in the morning. I was going to synagogue, and a woman makes a slow left out into me. And we're both okay. I get out. I'm like, are you okay? She's like, yeah. I'm like, what was that? What are you doing? It's like, you're clearly not drunk. You're not inebriated. Like, what was that? She's like, oh, I don't know. I just, I shouldn't be driving this early. But I got 10 grand for the car and I paid like $4,500 for it. So she did a good job. And then I was like, I could do this for a living. This is a great way to make a living. But how'd you like growing up in Florida?
I thought it was nice. It was the 80s, so I was born in 1984.
Okay.
And I thought Florida in the 80s was great. That's all I really knew. My grandparents lived close to us. All my cousins live on the same street with us. So it was like
happy.
I mean, I now, looking back on it, see it as kind of like a small town upbringing, except it wasn't a small town. We didn't know differently, but we had a very traditional, family-oriented experience.
Yeah.
And so my wife is from Illinois. She's actually from a small town, a village even.
Yeah.
And so we all live on the same street in Miami. And her family, they don't live just on the same street. They live on the same land.
Wow. That's cool.
So that's like actual small town.
Yeah.
But our upbringings are very similar.
Sure.
Very similar. The most important things are family, friendship, community, even beyond family. So our neighbors that you know.
Yeah.
That's how I grew up. Our neighbors were family to us.
Sure.
That's how Gayla grew up. Her neighbors were family, and we're trying to create the same thing here.
Yeah, me too, man. I grew up like that too. And my dad actually grew up in Miami also in the 80s. He grew up on 43rd and Pine Tree. And he's one of six. And they didn't have a ton of family near them, but they were enough a personality themselves, you know. And you know, the Miami Beach Jewish community from the 70s and 80s was very small. And so they were also, you know, everyone knew one another. And like as time went on, they all kind of branched out and moved on. But you know, like you know, my dad's always still excited to like hear random names. My neighbor over here, 2 houses down, our grandparents are friends, and we currently have kids the same age, and he lives 2 houses down from me. Wow. So it's 4 generations of you know, Stern and Hirschmans that are just friends and living like down the block from one another, you know, and like we were just talking about it this weekend. It's really cool. It's a beautiful thing. I feel like a lot of people don't have that, you know. Agreed.
His family was from Miami Beach.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, my grandfather was from Brooklyn originally, but after he went to medical school, and then during, I guess, the Korean War, I think he volunteered. He didn't want to get drafted, and he wanted to volunteer and pick where he was going to go, and to avoid getting drafted and sent abroad. And he went to San Antonio for a couple of years, and then they relocated to Miami. But that they've been there since late 70s, early 80s, and I don't think anyone ever looked back. They still live there now, and he's gonna die in that house. He loves that place, you know. Like it's nice. It's beautiful. I growing up, I'd go to my dad's old bedroom and go through his stuff and like see what he had as a kid, and like we found a scrapbook of old girlfriends he used to keep and stuff like that. My mom flipped the shit about, but you know, like
like pictures of them.
Yeah. Like it's like this was Sherry. She was the best looking girl in the grade, and this is like what is it, you know? And yeah, it's Polaroid, just legit like that. And I was like, she's like, what is this still here for? But what was moving to Vegas like?
So my birthday's in August, and we moved in, let's say, July. So I think I was 15 technically, but when school started, I was 16.
And you were going to be a junior.
Rising junior.
And
I'd gone to the same school since 6th grade.
Wow.
And had always lived in the same house. Mm-hmm. And my older sister she had just graduated from high school. So she was going to be going to school in LA.
Okay.
And then my two younger sisters were like in middle school. So what was it like moving to Vegas? I was actually excited about it.
Yeah.
And, you know, in hindsight, I think that's interesting because it was in the middle of high school. And I really had no problem just picking up and moving across the country, not knowing anyone. So I think I had no problem with it for two reasons. One, my parents made it easy because I moved in the summertime before school started and like joined my basketball team during the summer. Oh, cool. So I met friends and my teammates before school started. So that was huge. Credit my parents for that. I think the other thing is that my personality just kind of is open to change. And I still have the same view. So at the time, to be honest, I didn't really think anything of it.
Really?
I had my good friends in Miami. They're still my good friends today.
Sure.
And let's go.
It's so interesting though, especially because like,
all right.
when you were growing up with all your like cousins and everything all around you, did you think you were going to miss that, or did you think like, you know, that was fun, but like let's try something new? Like, were you not like you were a teenager?
What I thought and what happened was they'll visit,
and they did,
and we'll visit home, and we did.
How'd you like Vegas? What was that like? It's a cool place.
It's a magical place in a lot of ways, but I think for a kid, then this is like 2000. What year was this? 2000.
Okay.
Vegas was still new, so my high school in Las Vegas was only 10 years old.
Okay.
From when it was built.
Wow. Cool.
Compared with in Miami, schools go back decades and decades.
Sure.
So it was a modern city, very suburban. We lived in Henderson.
Yeah.
And
it's cheap. It still is today.
I didn't have a perspective of that, but
yeah,
we went from our house in Miami, which is a lovely, lovely small home in a lovely neighborhood, to 2-story house. I had a big room.
Wow, crazy.
And my first job was at a rec center down the street from a high school. So
Did you work
it's
because you
been
had to, or work because you wanted to, or both?
uh definitely wanted to. I didn't have to like pay any bills or
Yeah,
anything,
yeah,
but I would pay for gas in my car,
yeah,
you know,
yeah. For
pay
the
pay for
fun
Taco
stuff.
Bell.
Yeah, the fun stuff.
Yeah.
The fun stuff in life.
So my parents never said you have to get a job.
Sure.
They're more like you have to do your homework.
Yeah,
And I was a pretty serious athlete, so it was extra, but it was important to me to
yeah. And you stayed for
I
college, right?
like working.
You like working.
Yeah,
Because you like feeling
still.
productive.
Yeah,
It's crazy.
I like
I
working.
mean,
I'm
it
like,
means that
a paycheck.
you like. So what about you? Like the work that you do, or you like the feeling of working and being productive, or
Both.
you like both?
I like the work that I do, but if I didn't do this work, I would do some different work.
Okay.
And at that time, I was a gym monitor at a rec center, and my job was to set the cones up and after the
Okay.
kids camp to clean up.
Yeah.
And it was very social. That's another aspect of work that I like
Yeah.
is the connection with other people, whether it's your colleagues or even then the
Mhm.
clients, the kids who come to the
Sure.
rec, the families
Yeah.
were my part of my tribe.
Yeah. 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 And one of the hardest things about my job, even one of the best things and hardest things, that it's completely remote, pretty much, right? So I do sales, and I communicate with the warehouse 100 times a day, and make sure everything gets out. I sell medical equipment, ultrasounds and patient monitors and stuff, and
Sure.
I'm communicating at the warehouse. I'm dealing with customers, but everything can be done on the computer on my phone. But I was just sitting in my living room all day for 10, 12 hours, and I'm like, I'm gonna go crazy. I actually started picking up part-time teaching just to get out, just to like go and interact. I was going crazy. I'm a very social person, and it drove me nuts to just be at home with just the phone and a blue screen all day. It drove me
Who
crazy.
were the customers?
Generally, private practices.
Okay.
The equipment we sell are refurbished. So a new ultrasound machine could run anywhere from like, if it's a regular like machine you see like in the TV shows or whatever, it could run anywhere from like 75 to 150 grand. The average cost of the machine that I sell is probably closer to 12 to 15. And I think that a lot of doctors are like, I think especially private practices aren't making as much money as they used to. And actually part of the reason my dad got into it was because it was pretty much economy proof, right? Because times are bad, no one's buying anything new.
Mm-hmm.
And in times are good, there's always people that are looking to get a deal anyway, and especially a doctor that understands that an ultrasound is an ultrasound and a picture is a picture. They're not going to fall for that $150,000 scam. They're going to say, well, I get the exact same thing for 20 grand or 25 maybe if I want to splurge. So why would I go ahead and do that? So it was it was phenomenal of my dad that he did that. But yeah, and then sometimes universities, sometimes hospitals, although hospitals have a tendency, they just have unlimited budget. They just, they got everything new. And, but I was just going crazy being at home, and it's funny because I'm very social, but I'm super shy about initiating a conversation. Once you give me that little space, like once you like say, "Oh, hey, what's up?" then like I'll pounce. Like I'm totally comfortable. But like I could sit next to you for 2 hours and not say a word to you until you give me that initial like green light that like it's okay to talk. So I'm not a door-to-door salesman kind of guy, and so most of my sales come from Google Ads, where I have a company that manages the people searching keywords. We'll pop up, we bid for it. So you pay 50 cents, a dollar, $2 per click. So, we come up, I think the first three ads on Google are always paid. The first three search results on Google are paid ads. Not everyone realizes that. But most of the time, if you're buying something, you're not getting past the first three
Right.
web links anyway. So I figure it's worth it. And all my leads are hot leads because anyone that calls me has opted to go to my website, click call or get a price, or you want to find out about why this machine costs X, Y, and Z and whatever it is. So I'm already getting that green light from the time my phone rings, and I'm totally happy to deal with that. Cold calling is exhausting.
What's the company called?
It's called Absolute Medical Equipment.
So what do I Google to get you as my top link on my feed?
You can search refurbished GE ultrasound, refurbished patient monitor, refurbished DEXA machine. A lot of people are buying DEXAs for health purposes now. A lot of people are trying to get their body fat, composition, and they're trying to get their whole body scans. And thank God we're really living in like, I feel like an awakening in terms of health, in terms of just, people realizing like, I just can't keep living like this,
Right.
And it's great. I think it's a beautiful thing, but most of the doctors that I sell now are to gyms and to fitness centers and to holistic doctors and stuff like that. And it's also it's out of pocket. It's not insurance. So it's a cash business, which a lot of people like. And then a lot of 3D, 4D baby ultrasound studios. You ever go to one of those?
No.
Yeah, dude, they're
No,
freaky,
just
man.
been to the regular,
Yeah,
to the doctor.
So if you haven't, if you have another kid, let me know, and we'll bring over one of these 3D machines, and we could show you the baby in 3D.
That's sweet.
And you could see its features. You see its nose, its eyes, its lips, the shape of its ears. You see everything. You see. I mean, it's kind of freaky because it's all in like yellow and like black and whatever, but it's cool.
It's cool.
Yeah, my wife refused to do it for this kid. So Vegas. So you went to Vegas. Sorry, guys, I get distracted. We ramble. So you went to Vegas, and you love it.
I do still love it.
You still love it.
I don't get back as much as I'd like, but I still love it.
You still have like a life back there that you.
No, I've been gone a long time.
Yeah.
So I graduated from high school in 2002, college 2006, and went to DC for law school and moved back to Florida in 2011.
Well, okay, so between those times, first of all, I know you play college ball. I want to talk to you about that.
Yeah.
Why did you decide to go to law school?
That's the dream job. Like that's what I thought I would always do when I was a kid. So
it's like prestigious.
Like I would say, if you asked me probably when I was 17, what are you going to do when you grow up? I would have said, be a criminal defense lawyer or an NBA basketball player.
Yeah.
And, I don't even know if I had the physical ability to be a super good basketball player, to be a professional. I didn't have like the emotional and mental drive to be a tremendous basketball player.
No?
I really didn't. And I don't know why.
But you love the game.
Gina and I actually talk about that because so Gayla was a soccer player.
Okay.
And she played in college as well. And she would have done anything to keep playing soccer, but she had injuries. I never really had any serious injuries, but I stopped playing at UNLV, just like decided I was finished. And then played again, went to Alaska, had a year of eligibility left.
In Alaska, you played?
I did.
University of
Alaska.
Get out of here.
Decided I was finished again.
What was Alaska like? Alaska, I've been dying to get over there, actually. Did you like it?
It was interesting.
Is it crazy?
Alaska's wild. Alaska's not like at 21.
Yeah.
It's not a did you like it kind of place. It's just an interesting place. And where I was so cold and dark. I mean, it was like.
Did that throw you off? I was going to ask that, like perpetual darkness or light.
It was like my. I had to think longer to figure out like what author I wanted to like compare this to.
Okay.
It was like it was like my coming of age in a way.
Sure.
So
because it was challenging.
Yeah, like Miami, Vegas. I had difficult circumstances at every chapter.
Sure.
But Alaska was lonely. So whatever I went through when I was a kid, whatever I went through until I was 20, 21, my family was always close by.
Yeah.
My friends were always close by. Alaska was geographically
isolating,
super far, and
it's a 5-hour difference too, right?
I'll give you an example that still resonates, even though it's been forever. Katrina happened while I was there.
Okay.
And family in New Orleans, my dad's from Louisiana, and it was like global news.
Yeah.
How terrible this tragedy was.
Sure.
I would see the newspaper that talked about the tragedy in New Orleans, and it was like watching a movie. It wasn't real.
Yeah.
That's how far away I was.
Yeah.
It was like reading about something like in a zombie apocalypse film. And that is one thing I remember being so different about my life experience up to that point. Was it was geographically far, it was culturally far, it was brutally cold in the wintertime, and this is metaphoric more than literal, but you can only see what's right in front of your face when it's that cold.
Yeah.
Literally, like,
yeah.
You go outside and you're like trying to find the car door.
Yeah. That's the closest thing that you can get to it.
Take that and apply that to life.
Yeah.
Everything else is like I wasn't literally in survival mode. I lived in an apartment. We had heat.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
Of course, but yeah.
At school, I could eat the cafeteria, but beyond that, it was really, really bizarre. And so I remember my sisters uh, being like, "You're a lot, you're a lot more serious of a person," and they didn't even mean like serious demeanor. They meant like you're not like a jokester.
Yeah.
Like you actually have goals now.
Yeah. Since you got there.
Yeah, since I came home from there. So I was there for one school year.
Because I bet because the loneliness kind of forces you to confront you know, like who you are.
You have to deal with it. That's a fact.
Yeah. It's, by the way, it's so great that I mean, I don't know if I would like envy that, you know, but
don't.
You know, yeah, of course. But I please, yeah. But I
yeah, don't envy it.
And don't
don't do it.
don't go to Alaska.
Well, no,
I've been lonely
not for a year.
When I moved to Seattle, it was actually so. I've had a lot of loneliness in my life, and one of probably the valuable thing I got out of college was I got a creative writing and literature degree. The valuable thing was learning how to take everything that was bouncing around in my head and in my body, my guts, and put words to it, you know. And so when I'm and so I learned that certain emotional weights, like, you know, when you feel the weight of anxiety, you feel the weight of loneliness or isolation, that those weights actually have words that could manifest what they are and express what they are. And when you do that, you kind of discover why you are feeling what you're feeling, you know, and where it's coming from and who you are, you know. And I would never have had that if I didn't have that loneliness. And having that, and with that understanding, from not, you know, for sure, based on my other, I've been in a 2.5 year relationship. I've been in a year long relationship that was very serious. My marriage would have been miserable if I didn't have the opportunity to really discover like who I am and like understand myself, so that I could be eloquent and articulate about the big things in life that you got to go through with a spouse, you know. And even though it's really, really painful and challenging and difficult, I think that you kind of peel back a lot of the outside layers of like childishness or childhood, and like that really helps convert you into a man. Like you said, you're much more serious, you know, not demeanor, but like you know yourself now, like you know what you're looking for, you know. It's amazing.
I still was figuring out what I was looking for.
Yeah,
but I was different at 21 than I was at 19 or 20 for sure.
I bet. What was playing ball there like?
So basketball actually was more fun for me there than it was at UNLV. UNLV was an honor. I was very grateful to get to play there, and it was like, and we were never like an elite program during that time, but that's because UNLV was still paying for having not followed the rules to become an elite program in the 90s. So we were still on probation and always being supervised by the NCAA. A lot of things have changed these days, but where I'm going with this is, UNLV was literally fireworks. Like there was a fire show, really, for home games. It was sweet.
That's so cool.
And I'm so blessed. My parents could come to every game at home.
Yeah.
I had one sister who was still in high school, so she could come when she wasn't doing other things.
That's fun.
Alaska was in America, but across the world, and there was no fireworks. And it was a lot more akin to like a high-level high school program in the sense that the only fans are local people.
Yeah.
And we actually had some like sold out games, but it was like the people from Fairbanks, Alaska. It wasn't like,
sure,
you know.
What were the people there like? Were they nice? Were they like nice. Just kind of? They were Americans. I mean, you go to different cities, you get different personas. You know, I mean, like your wife's from Illinois.
If I can compare it, having spent some time in the Midwest, Fairbanks, Alaska is like Topeka, Kansas.
Okay,
if that helps.
Okay,
so it's much further away. The the temperatures are brutal. In the winter, it was -50 every day. -40 to -60 was the range. So there are people who choose to remain in an environment like this. So they're not the same as people in Illinois or Kansas or anywhere else, Indiana, but their warmth. I think, to be honest, I think in Hollywood we have a lot of simplicity. Like people want to have, give their kids a good life. They want to have friends. They want to laugh. They want to enjoy things. That's kind of similar to how Alaska was, but on a more extreme scale because it took a lot of work.
Yeah.
To have basic things, especially during the wintertime.
Yeah.
So that's how I would describe it. I think the people there were great. They were great. And I think nothing really extreme stands out to me in terms of highs or lows. Everybody was just nice, normal.
It's so cool.
They had boots on
all the time.
coats. I could wear a ski mask.
How do you prepare for?
I could wear a ski mask in a bank.
Everyone did it there, right?
It was, Mr. Osborne, how can we help you? That was a big difference.
It's
That
so
was a
funny.
big difference.
It's so funny. It's so funny. No one thought twice about it.
This is before your generation a little bit, but Young Buck was a rapper, and he's in G Unit with 50 Cent in them. But on his album cover, he has like a ski mask on, but he's from like Tennessee or something, and not wear a ski mask, right? But you could pull the ski mask on and walk around, and nobody was suspicious of you. One, because it was cold, but two, because nobody's robbing the bank.
Yeah. I bet the crime rate was real low, right? You weed out the criminals real quickly. You spend 2 days in the winter there. You're like, nothing that anyone here has is worth it. They moved to Vegas. They moved to Nevada. They moved to LA. They moved wherever. Better weather.
Alaska's not the place for shenanigans.
Yeah, certainly. I had a couple of customers there. I really wanted to go. And when I was living in Seattle, I was like, I wonder how far it is to drive. And it would take
Too far.
the same amount of time as it took for me to go from New York to Washington.
So far.
Cross country is how far Alaska is from Washington. You know,
drove. When I moved there, my dad and I drove from Vegas to the port of Washington.
Okay.
And then we took a ferry.
That's a probably 16-hour drive.
I don't remember exactly, but it was
a long drive.
It was long.
Yeah.
From Vegas to Port of Washington, it took us, because we stopped reasonably. So I think it might have taken us 24 hours or so on the road. And then we took a ferry 3 days and 3 nights to Haines, Alaska, and then drove, I can't remember exactly now, it's been so long, but I think another day to Fairbanks. So that was interesting too, because one, we got to spend a lot of quality time together. As a dad now, my dad was he's retired now, but he was an engineer and like very much a busy professional. It probably took us a week to get to Alaska. Yeah. And he was able to spend that time.
It's really beautiful.
To move me to a second college.
It's crazy.
And I cherished the trip, but also at the time I appreciated it, but I appreciate it even more now. And I think easy decision for us. Like if our older, he's 4 now, in 14 years, wants to go to school in Ireland or wherever on earth, we're going to make that work. Yeah. But that's something I don't take for granted. And the other thing about the distance was it was the summertime. And in Alaska, it was the summer, but it was cold. And where I lived in Alaska, it was light all the time in the summer. And then in the wintertime, it's dark all the time. Yeah. That's the other element of the...
It throws you off.
Loneliness /
seasonal depression.
Despair. Yeah. Like it's tough. And it wasn't that tough. Like I knew I was going home in May. So it wasn't that tough, but still it was tough.
Yeah. Yeah, because our brains aren't wired. They're not wired to not have daylight for 3 months or 5 months or whatever it is. Like, yeah, I know in Seattle that people used to get seasonal depression from the mist. And I understood that, and they would get like these UV, like these lamps that have like this extra high like UV or extra bright or something like that. Yeah. That apparently is supposed to be a little better to like make you feel like it's a little bit more natural, but it's. I found that what helped mitigate, which Seattle you could do, but you can't in Alaska, is actually just go for walks and like just be outside and get that like fresh air and like really be with nature. And like even though it kind of sucks that there's no light or not a lot of sunlight, at least you're out and like you feel like your whole system's resetting. But -40, -60, what do you even wear? You just put on layer after layer after layer, and then you go to the gym and you take off layer after layer after layer. You just
long johns, sweats. At the time, this clothes were baggier.
Yeah.
So
Cooler.
baggy joints, ski mask, pocket warmers,
Pocket warmers.
little
Sure.
pockets.
Yeah, those are
Your
great.
shoes in your pockets, in your coat pocket. But you don't go outside really. I mean, you go to the car, from the car to the gym to the grocery store, wherever you're headed, and you hope for the best. Go for the best. There were times. One time I was out at night. I was going to see my little brother from the Big Brothers, Little Brothers, or
Yeah, sure.
Big Sisters, Big Brothers, Big Sisters thing program. His name's KJ.
You did that in Alaska.
I did.
Yeah.
And I was coming home from seeing him and his family. They lived in North Pole, Alaska.
I don't even know what that is, but it just sounds awful.
It's
North Pole.
It's a town near Fairbanks.
Okay.
That is
North of it, I bet, right?
Called. I don't really remember. It was called North Pole.
Yeah.
And it wasn't that it was colder in North Pole, but there were no streetlights. So I was leaving there and I was like lost. And I had this is flip phone days.
Yeah.
Had very limited cell service. And I wasn't really panicking, but it was a fact that I had to find my way home.
Yeah.
Because you don't make it if you don't.
Yeah.
And I don't remember being that panicked about it. Like I remember driving around and being like, all right, you try to retrace your steps, but everything's like a frozen street. Everything looks the same.
Yeah.
And eventually I made it out to whatever the main road was, or maybe I saw a car, followed that car, and they led to where the highway was. But the reality was that you slide off the ice into the ditch, your car breaks down.
You're finished.
Yeah. Tonight's the night.
Wow.
Yeah, you see God tonight because...
Yeah. Wow. It's crazy.
Yeah, so that aspect of it is interesting too. Like in Miami, you can see yourself dying any number of ways.
Sure.
In Alaska, you see yourself potentially dying a number of other ways, but there's no overlap.
No, not at all. Not at all. It's got to have an impact on the psychology of people that live there. It's got to make you a different breed of human being, and I'm sure, for better, for worse in different ways, but gotta be crazy.
So people, I think it's been many, many years. I left there in 2006, but I think people look out for each other. Mm-hmm. You see a car pulled over, you stop.
Yeah.
You to check on them.
Yeah.
Here you don't, right?
Yeah.
It's like you breeze by.
Yeah.
My
I always think about
at one
it.
point picked up a hitchhiker.
Really?
And I don't remember that it was that cold that night, but we picked up a hitchhiker and gave him a ride. It's a different place. It's different. And I think humans are the same, but the circumstances are so different that you have to...
There's a different moral code almost, like a social code. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And you don't want to be the guy to ruin it for everyone. Like, no one wants to be the guy that ruins it and no one else could hitchhike, because...
Yeah, it's... If you're out on the road at night, that guy, I don't remember being that cold that night, that particular night, but the night that I was coming home from KJ's house.
Yeah, that was crazy.
I was all right. I didn't need a hitchhike, but if I did, I really needed a ride.
Yeah.
I really needed a ride.
Yeah. Wow. So you were in Alaska for a year.
One school year. So I moved there in the summer, and I graduated from school. Actually, I finished.
Did you get your degree from UNLV?
Alaska.
Really? Even though most of your credits were from UNLV?
Yeah, so I had to do summer school. So school finished, let's say, in May. I did summer school from May to August.
Yeah.
To get over the threshold of credits.
That you need to graduate.
To graduate from Alaska, because I would have had to... I had another year of eligibility. I would have had to go back to Alaska.
Yeah, for another year.
I guess, or go back to UNLV. But what I did instead was I took summer school, finished at Alaska. Then I went to UNLV for a master's degree in communication. Then I went to law school at Georgetown.
Why did you get the master's degree?
I had to get ready for law school.
Yeah, so you were doing it while you're studying for the LSAT, and you were basically filling time, but responsibly.
Yeah.
Huh.
I had 3 jobs.
Really?
Yeah.
Doing?
I had a job at the amphitheater selling tickets and picking up popcorn.
Okay.
Selling tickets, selling popcorn, and then sweeping up the popcorn at the end of the night.
Nice.
I taught public speaking at UNLV.
Nice, really?
As a graduate assistant.
That's fun.
To freshmen. And my third job was at the United States Attorney's Office in Las Vegas, which is when I discovered what it meant to be a federal prosecutor.
Right.
So that 2 years was preparation for law school, but it changed my life in the sense that I actually found my purpose, at least when it comes to being a lawyer.
Right.
Like I wanted to be a lawyer since I was a little boy. Most of that understanding what a lawyer was came from TV.
Sure.
Either like television shows or the news.
Yeah.
But working at the U.S. Attorney's Office showed me like what
everyone calls the lawyers heroes. Yeah. So funny. Okay. Before I want to get to the law, but who are your basketball heroes?
Yeah.
And what was your playing style like? What would you play?
That's funny. I'll start with the playing style.
Okay.
Do you remember Michael Finley?
Yeah, sure. From Memphis, right?
Mavericks.
Right. He wasn't in Memphis after?
Maybe.
Okay. Yes, but yeah, sure.
When I was in high school, he played for the Mavericks.
Okay. That's the championship team with Dirk and
I'm not sure.
Okay. Anyway, yeah, Michael Finley.
He played the three. He's a lot taller than I. He's probably 6'8" is my guess. But he would shoot like from the wings. He was a slasher.
Yeah, that's right.
Occasional 3-point shooter. But I thought as a kid that my game was kind of modeled after his.
Right.
And in terms of
he's a good player. He's fun. I remember playing with him in 2K a lot with my younger brothers.
He was drafted by the Suns, played for the Mavericks, the Spurs, and eventually the Celtics.
Oh, okay.
And won the championship in 2007, to your question.
There you go. Right. Yeah. So I was wrong about Memphis. I don't know why I'm thinking that.
So, I mean, I liked a lot of players, but
there were players that like what they did, like they have like the way they play is like a link, like almost like a personal like expression.
Michael Jordan was definitely my hero. I had the VHS tapes.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, we didn't really watch TV during the week.
Okay.
But I could watch the Bulls game if it was on.
Nice. That's good.
I had an exception for the Bulls games if my homework was done.
Sure.
As a kid. So Michael Jordan for sure. It's probably it, to be honest, because
you weren't a huge NBA fan. You just loved basketball. You were just good at it.
I liked the Bulls. I liked Michael Jordan. Not just his play, he was just an inspirational figure. He overcame adversity. Yeah. His dad died. Mm-hmm. Like, I think a lot of the narrative around his career is like a narrative that can motivate you in life outside of basketball. And I think that's what a lot of athletes these days, not that they're missing it because I think they're doing fine, but that to me is a difference. Some people compare like this generation to the old generation. I don't compare like their skills. I think this generation's skills are obviously better, but the like cultural impact
for sure
is unparalleled.
What do you think? Why do you think that is?
Storytelling has changed.
Okay.
And access has changed. I think we see too much.
Okay.
These days.
Yeah. It's better to see them as like hidden figures that are like these like heroes on the court. Yeah.
Well, he was so to use Michael Jordan as an example, he was a hero on and off the court. Mm-hmm. Because like in the best movies, the hero is imperfect, has flaws.
Yeah.
Gambles too much, right? That's
yeah.
And that's what the press would say. Loses a family member, and is like in the tunnel holding the trophy, like boohoo crying, with his teammates like on top of him.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I've never experienced that.
Yeah,
but there's a humanity in that everyone can relate to.
Yeah,
and that to me hasn't been replicated, even if the players that have come after him, if they played one-on-one, 1997 athlete versus a 2025 athlete.
Sure.
The 25 athlete has the advantage. Yeah. Right? It's obvious.
Well, they were sweeping, especially when I was growing up, like cultural basketball moments, at least. one moment that I was personally devastated about. I was so sad. Steve Nash was one of my favorite players. I just loved that he was kind of pass first, but could also do everything else. And so, like, he didn't need to pass first, but he just chose to. And I thought that was really cool.
Yep.
And how good he was at soccer. I thought it was so much fun that he could have played either sport.
Super cool.
Yeah. And then there's one year where it was one of his last years that like he was gonna like he was clearly like getting older and they were playing the Lakers. It was him. I think it was Amari and Shaq against, and like, the Lakers ended up winning the championship that year. They played the Magic with Dwight Howard and Jameer Nelson and that whole team, and I think the Suns lost in 7, and like Steve Nash crying at the end of that game, and like I was like, this guy's not going to get a chance to. He's not going to win a championship the rest of it. Like it was so sad, you know. But then also like when LeBron and Chris Bosh came to the Heat, you know, like that was like culturally shattering. Like that like was felt everywhere. I feel like, you know. I mean, maybe in my own little world, you know, but it just felt like everyone everywhere was talking about it. T-shirts were everywhere, sweatshirts are everywhere, sneakers are everywhere. Like, yeah, and then I don't know. And I don't know whether it's me that I lost some interest in it, or I don't know, like what you said, like if there's almost too much exposure, which it's almost like, you know, like the way, like for example, Marvel, like people are experiencing Marvel fatigue. There's too like every other week is a new Marvel movie, a new Marvel show,
And a new hero.
and a new hero. You know, and like how many of them can you have that you're really, really invested in or attached
Which
to?
one of the kids invested in?
Yeah,
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man. For this in the same in the same month for
And I don't know if it's
60s.
Marvel or not, but
It is Marvel. It's the same one since the
one that
60s.
the kids like is Spidey.
Yeah, he doesn't stop.
So
Your kid, your son like
You can throw whoever you want to out here at us.
Yeah,
Spidey's the guy.
yeah. They don't know how many movies are. It's probably 12 of them. So, so you decided you wanted to be a lawyer. What was the biggest? What's the biggest difference between TV and television and stuff in real life that you've experienced in the law world? I'm curious about that. Like, what was your expectations, and then like, oh, that's nothing like anywhere near that. And did someone tell you that, like, oh, this isn't like the movies, or is it like, listen, like, this is your job, and you got to do this, and like, oh, that's nothing what I thought it was.
Well, the reality is, for me, it actually is kind of like the movies.
Is it?
It's actually,
Oh, really?
it's actually not that different.
Because then you're going to trial. Because you're going to trial.
It's not that different than the movies.
Wow.
So nobody told me either way. It'll
Okay.
be like the movies or it won't be.
Okay.
And I'm not at the pinnacle yet, but it's actually like the movies.
How so? Can you give me some examples?
Sure, I can give you some examples.
You were a prosecutor. Yeah, I did a Google. I looked at your resume, but
Prosecuted cartels.
you did I did not know that part. You prosecuted cartel.
That part's not on Google.
Or at least I didn't search enough. I didn't search
No,
enough.
it's not on Google.
Really?
It's not on Google.
Wow.
Yeah.
When? Where? What?
I'll tell you all about it. So it's not like this was not like the movies. There is no camera. So a lot of what you do, nobody knows. That to me is really the difference. And so speaking for myself and others who have been either elite prosecutors or elite criminal defense attorneys, there's nobody telling the story of what you did or what you saw or what you experienced. That's what the movie's for.
Mm-hmm.
Beyond that, when there is a movie,
it's like that.
It's like that.
Do you think it's because they just get really good information and do really good homework when they're making the movies and the shows, and they're like, yeah, you know what, like instead of just making up what we think it is, like we're gonna talk to like real great
I think a lot of times the movies about these types of things, they talk to the real people.
Right.
And it's way more glamorous.
Sure.
You know, because whoever the actor is playing the person.
Yeah.
But the storyline with some embellishments oftentimes is close to the truth. And so I would say I've had really 2 significant chapters in my career so far. One was the prosecutor chapter, and now it's the private practice chapter. And to be honest with you, both chapters are kind of like the movies, but in different ways. The prosecutor chapter, the cartel part of it, at least, which is like the last 2.5 years of it,
Mm-hmm.
I would be sitting in my office on a Thursday,
Okay.
and an agent, like an actual American hero, like
Yeah.
would walk in and say, "We think that cartel that will go unnamed in Mexico is planning to use a submarine to transport $50 million worth of cocaine from one part of the world to another part of the world. We have an informant
Yeah.
who knows about this and has information. We want to open an investigation. Are you interested?"
Mm-hmm. So they offer you the case. They're like, "Are you interested in this?"
Yeah.
And
So,
are
we're
you?
sitting here just like you and I are
How
sitting.
many? Typically speaking, if something like the cartel, first of all, I'm sure people are afraid to take that case, right? Do people not want to get in the bad side of the cartel, or they don't?
We're not generally fearful of that. Like, in my experience, the professional traffickers of drugs or humans or money launderers, particularly overseas, it's not part of the business calculus, the risk assessment,
Mm-hmm.
to
Right.
kill an American prosecutor or agent. Like, that's not,
It's too much.
it's unnecessary. That's not the business. The business is to make profit and to avoid being killed or going to jail.
Mm-hmm.
So, to answer your question, when that is brought to me, whether it's a literal submersible submarine investigation, which I had,
Yeah.
or corrupt law enforcement overseas, or just a cartel trying to move into different types of business in different parts of the world, I never felt personally at risk
Mm-hmm.
to like have this conversation about the investigation.
Yeah.
They're not worried about me.
Yeah.
The person that is actually their enemy, persona non grata, if you will, is a person who's in the organization.
They're telling you.
That's an informant.
Yeah.
That person is in danger.
Yeah.
But that person could be making a salary from the United States government to provide information.
Does the government make it worthwhile, or is it like the rest of the government? Like,
So worthwhile is relative,
sure.
depending on where you are in the world. Yeah.
Right.
So it wouldn't be worthwhile for you and me,
Right.
because we have an infrastructure and a societal construct to where we can make a legitimate living.
Yeah.
So I never really judged anyone that I prosecuted, but I think people in different parts of the world, especially where like their government is, like, people complain about ours, right? But there's places in the world where like there is no court.
Yeah. There's more than one place in the world. There's
no
many
judge.
places. Right.
Right. So in those kinds of places, people have to react to their situation. People in America do too. My point kind of is like, it's kind of like the movies. It's to go back to what you asked me.
Yeah.
So
So you get this case. Do they? How many people do they typically go through before? Like, are they looking for you to accept them, or are they waiting to like say like? Do they interview you to take the case? Like, how does that go?
it's kind of like business.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true now in private practice. You do a good job, and the word spreads.
Yeah.
And so it became relational. So if I mean, I worked with a lot of tremendous agents, but it would be, let's say, FBI, DEA, Homeland Security, ATF. Those are the main ones that deal with like organized violent crime and
Yeah.
drug trafficking. You just do a good job on one case, and then they will tell their friends. So it wouldn't be anyone. Nobody's interviewing anyone. It would just be like, hey, we have a lead on X, Y, and Z. At whatever stage, it could be very, very beginning stage. It could be we have a couple control calls. We've seized some drugs.
Mm-hmm.
We're ready to prosecute in the United States. And in the federal system, in order to arrest somebody, they have to have the permission of the Department of Justice
To make the arrest.
to make an arrest.
And in order to get that permission, what do you need to present to them?
They come to us
Oh, okay.
and they say, to give you a simple example, here is a case where we bought crystal meth was big at the time. We bought a kilo of crystal meth from a person who lives in
Okay.
Hollywood, or wherever.
Yeah, sure.
Are you interested? I probably would have been. And so I can authorize them based on the evidence that I've seen. We have to get a warrant to arrest someone to go to a judge.
Yeah.
I don't make the decision. I make the decision to try.
Yeah.
The judge authorizes it.
Okay.
And then they can go out and arrest a person in Hollywood for drug trafficking in Broward County.
Okay.
But in the federal system, the agents have to have a prosecutor sign off on that. The police, local police, don't. They arrest somebody, they take them to jail, and the prosecutor makes a decision after the fact
Right.
about whether to actually pursue the charges.
Oh, right. Interesting.
That's the distinction.
Cool.
And
Between local and federal.
Where I'm going with this is in an international investigation.
Okay.
There's a lot more things you have to take into account.
Right.
So they would typically bring me in or someone from my office in at the beginning and say, we want to buy crystal meth from this organization. Here's what we have. This is what our informant says. These are the recordings that we've made. What do you think? And it's more collaborative from the very beginning. And so where I'm going with this is I basically would Monday through Friday, sometimes on Saturday and Sunday, have like, and I'm not saying this like, I'm saying this with all gratitude because it was really amazing.
Yeah.
I would be in my office and I'd have like some FBI agents here and then another group of FBI agents outside and some DEA agents,
No way.
Homeland agents.
Wow.
And we would be solving the problems of the world.
Wow.
And I never did terrorism cases, so not those problems.
Okay.
But in terms of
so you really were making a big difference.
High-level drug trafficking and money laundering investigations, as far as South Florida goes, we were doing it, man.
Wow.
It was like the movies. And I would travel with them, so we would have investigations where we would go.
Are they nice? What are they like? What are these people like? They're regular people.
Yeah, come to one of my parties. You'll meet them.
Yeah? Yeah. Okay, dude. I'm in, man.
They're
Wow.
regular. They're regular.
They're regular
awesome,
dudes.
Awesome, regular men and women with families who chose law enforcement sometimes after the military, sometimes instead of the military.
Sure.
Because they want to serve, and they do it anonymously. They don't get any credit. They only get criticism.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing stuff.
This actually dovetails well with something I think is probably interesting. At least Gayla thinks it's interesting, right? Like, so when we met, I was a prosecutor, and I was never like worried somebody was going to try to kill me or anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I did spend all my time thinking about the kinds of things we're talking about now.
What do you mean in terms of
like crime?
Yeah.
I wasn't worried for my own safety, really, but
you're just thinking about it.
I did spend all my time, really, all my like waking hours, sometimes my sleeping hours.
Did everything become
thinking about the most dark things you can think of?
Yeah. What does that do to you? Did that weigh you down? You feel like
it? I don't remember it weighing me down, but it definitely changes you, because it has to. And I like the job, and I didn't even leave that work for that reason, but that's probably something. Some of the movies show it though, like some of the movies that show like the cop who's like, the dichotomy of the cop, like Training Day is an example. Like
I love that
films,
movie.
right?
Yeah.
Where the cop is like high level, but also like totally corrupt himself or herself.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen to most people, but it can. Because you're like,
sure,
cops more than the lawyer. The cops are actually in relationships professionally with actual
criminals,
mobsters.
Yeah.
Actual.
Do you ever listen to Diary of a CEO? You know that podcast?
No.
It's a great podcast, and he had on recently. I'll send you the link after. The most corrupt New York police officer. Like that was this guy's nickname, and he had a drug operation going. He was cheating on his wife all the time. He was like, and I hear this a lot based on different podcasts I listen to, but like, you feel like once you get started, you feel like you're already corrupt and there's just no going, like you can't go back anymore. So you just have to keep going. Like you feel like if I tell anyone that I moved whatever amount of coke or meth or whatever it is, if I tell them I'm fired, and I'm making 30, 50, 70 grand a year, and I just made 10 grand in a week.
I'm in too deep.
Yeah, I guess.
Also a movie.
Yeah. What'd you think of the movie Trials of Chicago 7? Did you watch that?
I don't think I did.
Yeah?
I didn't see that.
So
I've seen the poster. I haven't watched
let
it.
me know. Yeah, if you ever watch it, let me know what you think. It's actually one of my favorite movies. Just because primarily of the time period, it's based on the '68 Chicago riots during the National Democratic Convention, and the court case was whether or not the people, whether the riot was started by the police or by the protesters, and that was the premise of the movie. And it was a very politically based movie, based on protesting against the Vietnam War and everything like that. But um, and I watched the movie and then I read about a lot of the characters in the movie, and that's kind of where I saw the that's where like life and cinema kind of go apart from one another. That like the characters themselves are romanticized as like better people than they probably were.
Right.
But the case itself, I'd be curious like what your thoughts were in terms of that. But you'll have to let me know if you ever watched that.
I will.
But okay, so you were prosecutor, cartels, DA, FBI, and how many years did you do that for?
In total, 4.5 years. The first couple years, though, I didn't do cartels. It was like when you first start, you do uh, less organized
Do
crime.
cartels deal in Miami a lot or South Florida a lot?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they're not. They're
Like I
not
would
generally.
associate like Texas or California or like the states that are bordering Mexico directly. Where it's the
So, so there's like. Now I've been gone from that world for some years now, so I'm sure it's evolved even since then.
hmm
But the base of organized crime, at least for our jurisdiction. So in Miami, our jurisdiction was Miami, South
yeah.
Florida, but also um, the Caribbean and South America and parts of Central America.
Okay.
Somebody in New York or somebody in LA has jurisdiction over other parts of the world,
Sure.
international.
Yeah.
But for the world that we had jurisdiction over, the base of the activity wouldn't necessarily be in Miami, but the the product would come here,
hmm
and so the money would be generated here, and then has to get
Ah.
back to the to home base.
Right.
So there's like a, I don't know if you call it a continuum, or there's a route for product in, money out
hmm
that is constant.
Yeah.
It's an economy.
Yeah.
So yeah, cartels were busy here, but also like because we had jurisdiction in other countries for crimes that touch the United States, it didn't necessarily have to directly impact Miami for us to
Be involved.
us meaning law enforcement to have the resources to investigate. And then the question would, as a prosecutor, be based on what we discover, do I have jurisdiction in the United States to bring a charge? And if so, can I bring that charge in South Florida?
hmm
Because the agents would sometimes investigate in partnership with law enforcement from other countries, and the case would be brought in another country.
Right.
If that country has police in a court,
Yeah.
which sometimes they don't.
Sure.
So that's kind of like
Do you take into
question.
account whether the complete like when you say they don't have a court, is that because it's a corrupt court or because they literally don't have a court?
Sometimes
Or either?
either,
Either, right.
either. Yeah.
So, what's your thoughts on extradition? What's your thoughts on like
Bring somebody here or
bring
somebody here
either
somewhere
way,
else.
either way. Like the notion of someone being in another country that is not their jurisdiction, and like the other country shipping that individual back to there.
It is what it is.
Gotcha.
I've never defended somebody in an extradition.
Okay.
Not that I wouldn't. I just never done it.
Sure.
But I've definitely extradited people
Yeah.
to the United States
From other
from
countries.
wherever they were.
Because they did crimes in America, or because they were being tried for their crimes in America, or both.
They did crimes for which we had jurisdiction to prosecute them in America,
Okay.
and we satisfied the treaty requirements
Okay.
for their country or wherever they were harbored to put them on the plane.
Which is why it is what it is.
That's what it is.
It is.
Yeah.
So,
So it's not. It's
that
not
the whole
personal.
time you're working for the government.
That time, yeah.
That time. So you're a government. You're a federal employee.
Yeah.
Um, got it. And then you went private.
Yeah.
And why'd you do that?
February 2019.
So 6 years ago.
Yeah.
6, 7 years ago. Wow.
Yeah.
By the way, 2019 feels like yesterday, doesn't it?
Not to me.
Not to you. Well, to me, man. Listen, dude, I remember 2019. Like, the truth is, I think that 2022 to 2025 is the biggest blur. You know, from when I got like, I think when I got married and like my whole life became based on like being in one place and like planting my roots and growing upward, as opposed to discovering my place.
Mhm.
I think the time goes by a lot faster when you're in one place settling your roots.
Weren't you 23 in 2019?
I was 20, I don't know, I was born December 95. 2019, no, I was older. I was 20, I graduated college in 2017 and I was 20, I just turned 22.
How old are you now?
I'm 29.
It's 2019, but 6 years ago.
2019, 6 years ago. 24?
Whatever. That feels like yesterday to you.
It does. It does feel like yesterday, by the way, dude. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened to 26, 27, and 28, dude. I don't know what happened to them. 20, 23, 24, 25, I remember distinctly. I don't know. I don't know what it is, man. I don't know. So, okay, so you went
That's
private.
funny.
So you let, so did you want to leave or you were ready to leave?
I was ready.
Would you ever go back? Would you ever do that kind of work again?
I would, but as the as the chief.
Okay.
I wouldn't go back and like be in court. I
Okay.
would go back as the leader,
So then
executive.
what's the difference in like day-to-day life if you're going back as executive as opposed to doing the court?
Historically, that would mean in a lot of ways I'm an executive now, and you would have basically a significant role in recruiting.
Mm-hmm.
You'd have a significant role in executing the U.S. government's law enforcement policies,
Really?
and it would be focused though on your jurisdiction, which in my case would be South Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So I'd be if I was to do that, I'd be the chief law enforcement officer for the Southern District of Florida, which goes from Key West to Fort Pierce.
Cool.
So it's more it's not policy, like you're not like a politician, but you're a prosecutor who trains prosecutors, who recruits prosecutors, who makes sure that prosecutors do the job the right way. You don't really you don't set the priorities, but you enforce them
Mm-hmm.
and you interpret them.
Interesting.
And relationally, your peers would be like the Miami head of the FBI, the Miami head of the DEA. So they're
Right.
not going out arresting people either. But as a team,
You get bigger picture things.
you're doing the biggest picture things with really like a focus on overall community safety. But really, like the most important part of that to me is hiring.
Hiring.
It's really important. Hiring and training. That's
What's that process like?
uh,
Is it just that you have to just sift through thousands and thousands of
your team
applicants
does.
and
Your team does. When I was hired, this is in 2000.
I'm gonna get more ice, by the way? Can
All right.
yeah?
Thank you. Yeah.
Cool.
I was hired in
Thank you.
2014. If I remember correctly, there were like
Thank you.
2,000 applicants, and like 5 of us were hired.
Wow. What stood out about your resume that got you there? Was it your grades? Was it your extracurriculars? Was it your
To be honest, I think my resume was cool, but there's so many applicants that it wasn't really my resume. It was a mentor of mine his name's Angel. Angel, when I told him that I applied, actually directly reached out to the person who at that time had the job that I'm telling you about. His
Okay.
name's Willie.
Okay.
Also my mentor, my brother now. But
Willie?
Angel texted Willie and said, I had lunch with the kid that you should meet.
No way.
Yeah.
Wow.
And
How'd you meet
him
Angel?
directly. Angel worked with me at the time.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah.
So he knew you already.
And he had been a prosecutor before.
Mhm.
And we had lunch, and I asked him for advice, and he said, I advise you to send me your resume and let me send some text messages because
Wow, good for you, man.
there's so
That's
many
awesome.
applicants that
Yeah.
I don't think they would have even seen my resume just because there's so many people that apply.
Sure.
So the process then, I think it's very similar now, although it's been 10 years or so. You have like 3 rounds of interviews, and then in the third round, you interview with the leadership team.
Mhm.
So what stood out, I think, really more than my like resume, it was really my commitment to serving the community, which I've always had. But at the time, I was only like a second-year lawyer, so I didn't really know how to do the courtroom things that I do now. But I could prove that like I was really committed to
Mhm.
Miami. Like
That's
I could
beautiful.
prove that,
That's beautiful.
and that stood out.
Yeah.
And at the time, that was one of the things that the office was looking for, and that's how I got the job. And there are some people who get the job for that reason. There are some people who get the job for because they have the highest GPA,
Sure.
because they have, like if I was to apply, not me, but a person like me was to apply now, it could be because you actually have trial experience and you
Yeah.
can actually go to court and win
Yeah.
without being trained.
Yeah.
Well, I had to be trained.
Yeah. Yeah. And I bet they take that into consideration, right? Whether or not you need to be trained and all that.
I needed to be trained.
You need to. When you're trained in court, you're trained privately behind closed doors.
Both.
Both.
So you get trained in court, and for the Department of Justice prosecutors, there's a school. You go to school in
Wow.
South Carolina.
South Carolina.
2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 week trial school.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. It's called trial advocacy, some trial advocacy program, something of that nature.
What? I feel like this might be a crazy question. I hope it's not. Um, does being a lawyer, both as a prosecutor and a defendant,
Mhm.
does that give you like what are the flaws in the legal system? Like, do you like if you meet someone, you're like, this guy was convicted of X, Y, and Z. Do you think that guy had a crappy lawyer? Or do you think that guy's a criminal? How do you differentiate between like where the law starts and where like the criminal intent and behavior and who the person is, goes?
That's a great question.
Because so much is like in the nuance, and so much is like not just about whether or not like it's beyond a reasonable doubt, right? Like
That's the standard, yeah.
that's the standard.
Yeah. So I'll answer the question literally, and then I'll
Elaborate.
then I'll poeticize a little bit. So when I meet somebody who has been convicted, I don't really think anything.
You just think, oh, interesting. Like that's just information that you have.
I don't think anything.
Just new information.
Yeah. Like, all right.
Okay.
It doesn't compute anything in terms of how they ended up there, in my mind. Because, and this goes to, I think, the broader question that you're asking. Because in my mind, you can end up there so many different ways. And I have no way to know which way it was. Like the bad lawyer, maybe.
Or a great lawyer.
Maybe, right? Like maybe the bad lawyer, but as a as a black man who is a corporate defense lawyer who was a prosecutor who was a black boy,
Yeah.
man, you can end up talking to the police when you've done nothing wrong.
Yeah.
It could be because somebody that you know has done something wrong, which I've
Mhm.
been in that situation before. It can be because you've been mistaken for someone. I've been in that situation before.
Really?
It could be because you're in the wrong place at the wrong time. I've been in that situation before. But to me, fundamentally, the way I've avoided negative outcomes from
Yeah.
all three of those really goes back to family and goes back to upbringing and self-respect.
Okay.
And ultimately, this is not something I probably had when I was super young, but as I got older, was like a respect for the power of law enforcement, right? So this is a very narrow example. It's a narrow example, but
Okay.
it's truly genuine to say if a person stacks because of the neighborhood they live in, the way they're taught to communicate with authority,
Mm-hmm.
because they lack respect for whatever reason for
Sure.
themselves,
Sure.
you could end up saying the wrong thing and be arrested for that.
Yeah.
That's like one extreme, right? The other extreme is you could actually be a criminal.
Mm-hmm.
I think another extreme is you could be a situational criminal.
Mm-hmm.
So you can be a criminal who has like who's an immoral predator. Those exist.
Sure.
You could be a criminal of like an opportunistic criminal of greed.
Yeah.
There's all these different ways this can all shake out. But I guess where I'm going with this is before you get to the bad criminal defense attorney, one of these things had to had to precede that.
Right.
One of these stories
Right.
had to happen before you needed a criminal defense lawyer who could be good or bad.
Right.
You could also be innocent and end up with the criminal defense attorney.
Yeah.
That's another path that's possible. All this to say, when I meet somebody and they've been to jail or they got convicted, I don't know which of these paths brought them there.
Yeah. So that's what I'm asking. Because
Yeah.
there's enough room. There's so many different little like cracks for people to just like slip in along the way of getting convicted, you know?
Some slip in.
Some. And by the way, some really are.
Some are
Yeah. Yeah.
bad people. Some are not bad people, but they made a bad decision.
Yeah. That's
Some are not bad people. They had really bad friends around them. All these things are possible at the same time. And I don't know who's who. When I was a prosecutor, my job was to figure out who's who. It's not really my job now. So I don't really know day to day. If I meet somebody, I have no idea how they end up where they are because I'm not involved anymore.
Yeah.
And most of my work is corporate. So like, I mean, I guess you have an occasional CEO who's like truly diabolical businessman.
Yeah.
But most of my clients had a business idea and rely on their team. And when we get the subpoena, we have to deal with it. But most of the time, whatever causes us to have to deal with the government wasn't the result of like some corrupt
Case.
intent.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand.
It happens.
Yeah.
For my practice, most of the time that isn't what predicated
Right.
us meeting with.
But your experience has led you to understand that when you meet someone who has a record, you meet someone who went to jail or convicted, whatever it is, doesn't necessarily mean so much about who they are
At all.
at all.
And that's my experience as a prosecutor, but I think that's my experience also just
What do you think about those people
growing
that
up
have a
to
hard time getting out, like adjusting to their lives after they get out? You know, like you know, you get hired, you can't get a job, you can't do anything. I mean,
it's the worst possible thing you can imagine.
I can't imagine, dude.
And coming home is terrible, but imagine being like locked up in a cage or in a the equivalent of like a walk-in closet.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I don't really have like what I'll say is I never internalized or felt guilty about my work. My work was righteous,
Yeah.
but jail could be improved.
Right?
It can be improved.
Is that something you consider pursuing in the future? You're not sure.
It's not on my plate. It's not on my plate personally, but it can be improved.
Yeah, I understand.
And in other countries, like for example, we went to Colombia for investigations. Their jails can be improved too. But you can like see your wife.
You could see your wife.
Yeah.
In Colombia.
In the jail that I visited in Colombia, you could see your wife. The jail could be improved. I'm not saying it can't be improved. They can all be improved. But the historical US model of like sending these men, mostly men, some women too, like to some faraway place where they're cut off from family.
Everything.
Is to me from what I've seen, doesn't lead to improving society.
I understand.
There are definitely people that I've heard about, a few that I've encountered, not most, some that I've encountered that I'm like, send him as far away from the rest of us as you can.
Yeah.
Because he will hurt people, physically hurt people.
Mm-hmm.
Could be rape, could be murder, whatever.
Yeah.
For most people that go to jail, they deserve to be punished, if you will. But on a human level, to me, the separation from humanity doesn't do anybody favors.
Mm-hmm.
That person, their family, or the rest of us when they
Or
get out.
society, yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. That's not really on my list of things to do.
Yeah, but it's something you've observed.
But to me, like that, we can do better.
Right.
Yeah. Like the rape culture in jail, we can do better than that.
Yeah, we could.
That's not doing anybody any favors.
Yeah.
God doesn't look favorably on that.
I can imagine not.
Yeah.
I can't imagine it's very. I can't imagine it's well endorsed. It's like endorsed and like oh yeah, like
That's not cool.
yeah. I can't. Um, we don't even. We'll have to do probably another podcast to get to the defense part. 10 minutes. I want to talk about family and balancing family and work and career and ambitions and
Sure.
and balancing your life because one thing that Guy has so much respect. Like, Guy loves you. Guy,
My God,
I love you. Dude, I love him.
That's my man.
By the way, I love him, and one of the reasons why I really really love him is because he's genuinely always looking to he's always looking to be a better human being, like authentically. Like he's like, what can I do to be a better husband? What can I do to be a better dad, a better businessman, a better friend? Like he's just always thinking about that. And, like his decisions aren't based on like what do I feel like doing right now, but like what's the right thing to do. And that's a really and he looks up to you. So like as much as I enjoy like that mentality, how do you like first? Okay, how do you balance it? And what do you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, but what's your struggle that you feel like, or like that voice in the back of your head that you feel like you have to get over? Like, for example, mine is, you've done enough, you don't have to do anymore. Or it's too hard, don't bother. Like, that's usually like the voice that I have to get past. This podcast, too much effort, don't bother doing it. Don't, or like, you did 2 episodes this week, that's enough. You don't have to do anymore. So like, I'm easily content, and I hate that I'm lazy, but I have a tendency towards it.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance work and life and everything? And then like, what ghost do you get past?
Yeah. All right. So how do I balance it? A couple ways. So I use my calendar religiously.
Okay.
And I calendar everything.
Okay.
Months out. It was challenging to get this time booked because of trials, which I can't calendar because I don't know when they're going to happen.
Uh-huh.
Outside of that, my calendar currently goes out to September.
Wow. Really?
Yeah. Yeah. And it includes trips with the family. It includes babysitting for like nights that I'm local and we'll go on a date.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one thing that
Just organizing hell.
Organize like to the extent possible. And that takes a little bit of attention to detail, but it's not over the top. But that's been a major thing for us. Number two is communication and intimacy with our kids. So the communication is with Gayla about like where we're going this year in terms of like as a family, as parents. So this is really probably boils down to leadership in my worldview.
Yeah.
Being a leader of the house in the sense that we do it collaboratively, but really my goal is to facilitate her accomplishing above and beyond her own goals.
Mm-hmm.
Creating a platform for our kids to do the same, even though they're young. And then putting everything I have to do professionally in the community in that context. So it's kind of like leadership goal setting for the house, for myself personally, as her supporter, as her husband, and then as a dad.
What happens if that deviates? What happens if like something falls off track or like something doesn't go as you improvise or
You improvise.
improvise?
To be honest, like I can't think of an example like that.
Okay, so most things have kind of like, because I'm sure your plans are loosely enough that it's just generalization, like time with kids.
Yeah, and they're simple.
Time with what?
They're
Yeah,
simple
yeah.
goals. Like we need to go see our family in Illinois, which is her family. We need to go see my family in Colorado. So they're simple goals, but they're things that if you don't, I think to your question, if you don't focus
Yeah.
on them and have a plan, you can easily go a year or 2 years. Some people go 10, right?
Yeah.
Without focusing on time with their spouse,
Yeah.
right? So we have trips planned out where just she and I are going. We have trips planned out with the kids to where everyone gets quality time with me. So that's one thing that we've done that has worked. And then in terms of the voice in my head, I'll tell you, like the voice in my head recently has been saying, "This is a Jay-Z line." I actually used it in my trial last week.
You use a Jay-Z line in
Yeah,
trial?
I did. I've tried to use one in every trial.
Do you quote Jay-Z or you just say the line? You say like, oh, as Jay-Z says, or you just say the line?
I've said in one trial, I said something to the effect of like, as my favorite poet once said.
Okay.
This last trial, I just said it,
Okay.
which was, "Is this what success is about?" He says, "Is this what success all about?" And so the voice in my head recently has been saying, it's more of a question of like, what's next? What does the future hold? And when I'm being asked that question, that like voice in my head, it's like for me, but really it's for us. And I don't know the answer. And I'm searching for that answer.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been welcoming feedback from clients, colleagues, friends, um, from Gala, from like the voice,
Yeah, sure. Yeah, God.
the
Yeah.
God
Yeah, sure.
voice of like, I used to dream about the future, and to be honest with you, the dreams that I had have already happened.
It's great. It's amazing.
And is this what success is about? Right?
Listen, I think it might be though, right? Like family, balanced life, meaningful work that you feel, accomplished about. And I guess I do you think that it's gonna strike you as like, oh, that idea resonates with me, or it's gonna strike you like I fall into it and then it's like, oh wow, I really love this, like I know, for example, I don't like you said you're okay, you're open minded and like trying new things and stuff. Like I'm not, I'm really not. And like I judge books by their cover naturally, just very, very, and I'll go on Netflix. Just based on like the name of the stupid show or movie, I'm like no, and then like this
You don't
best
watch the
movie of all
trailer?
time, and I'm like crap, I missed it,
You gotta watch
I'm
the
like,
trailer. You gotta watch the trailer.
so a lot of times you'll be like, until I start something, I'll realize that that's what's valuable to me. Like I do when I do the podcast, I never knew I wanted to do. I did an episode, and like every single time I walk away from like an episode, and I have it honest or emotional or open hour and a half, 2 hour, 3 hour conversation with someone, and we connect, and I learn, and like we're both being like open and expressive and honest. I walk away feeling rejuvenated and alive and like this is what like if I could do this all day every day, I would
This was
love
success is
that.
about.
This is what it's about, and so like so but I had to try it to even know that that would even be the option, so like do you think that you're going to have to conceive of an idea and then try it, or you're going to have or you're going to have to just try a couple of different things and be like, oh, this is for me, like and I don't know,
That's a great question, and I don't know the answer.
yeah,
Yeah,
you have to figure that out.
that's the phase that I'm in, and I'll tell you, so I shave most days,
Mhm.
but when I don't, like my beard is like getting grayer and grayer,
Oh yeah.
and a lot of times this kind of goes back to like what I do in court and all that, but so often my opponent in court is like 70,
Yeah.
right? And of late, probably this year, I turned 40 in August, right? So I'm like chronologically getting older. Like my beard is graying, my kids are growing up. They're still babies, so like that keeps me young.
Yeah.
So I feel young.
Yeah. And then
But
physically, you look like you're in great shape.
thank you, man. I have a trainer. who's also aging.
By the way, by the way, 40 could be there's like you're an age and there's like your body age, and like I'm sure your body age isn't 40. I'm sure your body age is in your late 20s, early 30s.
I appreciate that, but my but my mind remembers my
Yeah.
20s and 30s. Right? So
No escaping that.
I've been here a while,
No escaping that.
And
Yeah.
so where I'm going with this is, it is like a new. This is the stage that I'm in now, which is I'm 40. I'm blessed. My parents are still with us. They're healthy.
Thank God.
Our kids are growing up. Every day, every day is an adventure. I'm learning every day. I'm teaching something to someone every day, especially professionally. I'm living the dream that I used to have. And I'm in a very pugilistic profession. And the people that I'm punishing day to day are 30 years older than me.
Wow.
And I'm like, what does this all mean? And I don't know the answer to the question. And I actually like that.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm searching.
Yeah.
So I search during the day through conversation, through dialogue, through observing others. I search like in my dreams.
Do you remember your dreams a lot?
When they matter, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like in like conscious when I'm sleeping of like, what does the future hold? And I don't know the answer to the question, and I'm all right with that. But it's like I found myself, and I didn't necessarily expect this. But when I was 25, 26, I dreamed about being a federal prosecutor.
That's cool.
That was the pinnacle.
Yeah.
I'm 6 years removed from the pinnacle,
Yeah.
asking, what's the
What's
next
next?
pinnacle?
Yeah.
And it's obviously my kids, but their like major life events are years away.
Yeah.
And so my job, and I think your job, is to fill your own life with fulfillment so that we can be the best parents to our like
Yeah.
kids at their milestones.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah.
and in whatever ways that manifests.
So you think you want to be more present? You want to be around more to help your kids be. I don't know to what extent you're around or not.
Yeah.
But to be around to help to be that. I said this already in a podcast of the week, but there's a Springsteen line that it was so great. He's like, we're either ghosts or we're ancestors to our children. And like you have to choose what you're going to be. And like you could be a ghost where like you're haunting them, and like you're constantly like you're the stuff of their nightmares, or you could be like the guiding light and like live to see the way
the
that
guiding light path.
me too, man. Me
Absolutely.
too. But you know what? It takes so much effort. It takes so much patience. It takes so much work.
Yeah.
But dude, I hope to do this again.
Same.
I would love to do another. I'd love to do another recording in a couple of months, or whatever it is. And next time we have. And I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much, dude. And I feel like we're barely scratching the surface of the bucket. We're barely scratching the surface over here. But this is a lot of fun. I really appreciate you taking the time. Thank you.
Same.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. All right. We'll do this again soon. Bye, everyone.